This just in for our election coverage at 9 o'clock. I'm Tom Shadd. Our sister cable network News Nation has called the race for president in Virginia, with Kamala Harris winning. Here are the latest results as we have them. As you can see, 9% in. This is for national, with Donald Trump getting 53% of the vote to Kamala Harris 45. Again, these are national numbers, the popular vote with 9% reporting. So there is a lot more to go yet, but the word just came in from News Nation that Kamala Harris did win Virginia. 10 on your side is your local election headquarters. Good evening, I'm Tom Shadd. We are streaming now on wavy.com. Let's also get you updated with the race for the 2nd Congressional District, starting with these numbers here. Jen Kiggans with a sizable lead over Missy Cotter Smazel. The incumbent Republican has 55% of the vote. Cotter Smazel with 42%, 29% of the precincts report. And 10 on your side has team coverage of this race, starting with our Chris Horn, live in Virginia Beach with the Kiggans campaign. So, Chris, what's the feeling there now?
Yeah, I'll tell you what, there's a lot of excitement. Right now, Jen Kiggans, the incumbent Republican, with about a 14% lead in the early numbers. Every Republican who's anyone in this area is here tonight, including Mayor Bobby Dyer of Virginia Beach. Mayor, thanks for joining us.
Oh, my privilege.
Yeah, we saw, first of all, you're doing well in your own race. You're up by about 12,000 votes.
Yeah, but that's so far. The early voting is still out and the mail-in voting. We'll keep our fingers crossed, but we're trending positive.
Back to the 2nd Congressional District here in Virginia Beach and this area. A lot of outside money came into this race from PACs and political action committees. What do you think that's doing to our state of politics?
I'll tell you what, state of politics nowadays is really in a state of flux and crisis. And, you know, all the money, millions and millions of dollars coming in, even affects us on the local level, you know, because we have to compete with president and Senate and Congress and everything. And I'll tell you what, I wish some maybe look into some of this stuff. It's, you know, it's First Amendment, but once again, we got to be careful with that stuff.
Good luck in your race. We just heard that our network, News Nation, called Virginia for Harris. What do you think that does to this race?
Well, I'll tell you what, you know, I think Kiggans can hold strong. You know, once again, it comes down to individuals. You know, people a lot of times, let's put the party stuff aside. Let's vote for the individual, the person that's going to do the job.
All right. Mayor Bobby Dyer, thank you very much. So they're going to be here with a lot of excited anticipation. Right now, Jen Kiggans, the incumbent, has had a lead for the, let's see, over an hour, 2 hours since the polls closed. Can she maintain that lead? That'll remain to be seen. We're going to follow it right here at the Weston Town Center. We're live in Virginia Beach. Tom, back to you.
All right, thank you, Chris Horn. More votes coming in. We're going to continue our team coverage of this race with 10 on your side's Andy Fox, who's with the Missy Cotter Smazel campaign in Virginia Beach. And how's it look there, Andy?
Well, it's really festive here because they're also watching the TV and they are looking at everything that is coming in from across the country dealing with the presidential race. That's what's so interesting about this situation every 4 years, where we not only have all these local races going on, but we're also looking at what's going on around the nation. Now, I do want to let you know that Isle of Wight County has reported all of their precincts, and Kiggans wins that by 5,500. But these are the, this is Jennifer and Pat Cosgrove, thank you. Tell me, they left their home and they went to Suffolk, where they do not live, and you started working the polls. What did you hear at the polls?
Well, people were very interested. They wanted to know more about Missy, and they were very attracted to the fact that she was a veteran, but we talked a lot about her business experience, the fact that she was really good at listening. She has a high integrity, and so the fact that she's a good listener, she'll appreciate good ideas from both parties, bring that together, and then really prioritize the needs of where we live on coastal Virginia. That really resonated, and people were listening, they were engaged, and they were just appreciative to get to know the candidate more. So we just wanted to do our part.
It was really interesting too, because having a veteran run against an incumbent veteran, you know, brings up, well, why is your veteran better than the one who's already in office? And it was nice to hear people resonate with Missy's commitment to bringing veterans benefits, whereas Jen Kiggins violated that commitment in her vote in the House resolution that turned that down.
Are you concerned about Isle of Wight and the 5,500 votes? She probably saw that coming. That Isle of Wight County went for Kiggins and really put her over the top 2 years ago. Was there any discussion about the concern about Isle of Wight County? Suffolk, she's behind by a little, but there's a lot more precincts to go. But she is behind there, and in Accomack, but she is ahead in Franklin, and there's too few precincts coming in Virginia Beach to know. Any concern about this early lead for Kiggins?
Not at all. Not at all. No, people wanted to know about the candidates, and they listened, and that's all we wanted.
Yeah.
We had conversations with people. They were engaged, and I feel like people really wanted to make good choices, and that's all we wanted is an open mind. And Missy did very well in Suffolk today.
And Pat Cosgrove, were you all at the debate?
No, I was
we
out of
weren't.
town.
Yeah, we
out
were
of
both
town.
Well, a lot of people who were following her thought she was very good in that.
We
debate.
watched YouTube, and it was amazing. She was fully energized and talkative, whereas I felt like her opponent was asleep at the wheel. And it was nice to watch.
I was with them earlier, she and her husband, and she was listening to the radio. This is how she got involved in politics. And she heard a discussion on the radio talking about the ERA, the Equal Rights Amendment. And she said, I've got to get involved. I've got to be part of it. Yeah. So with that type of energy, listening to the radio, is that her?
That is her. She's tough, but she's classy. She has integrity, and she's a go-getter. She's going to put in the work, and that's what we want. We want class. We want
She
hard
sees
work.
something wrong, and she's out to make it right, and that's what we're talking about here.
I took the microphone away from you too soon.
No, you're fine. No.
Okay, so projection. Is she going to come back from behind to win?
Yes, she is.
Absolutely, Andy.
I think she does really well in Virginia Beach.
I don't know about this area of Virginia Beach, but we're looking. Virginia Beach is very large, and the numbers at the end of the day, that's all that matters. So every vote counts. We'll see how we do.
Missy supporters out here, very hopeful and optimistic. Thank you, Cosgroves, very much.
Thank you very much.
Nice to meet you.
Candidates always need people like the Cosgroves on their side.
Thank you.
Thank you, Andy.
Thank you very much. So just wrapping this up again, Jen Kiggins is ahead in these key areas. She wins Isle of Wight County by 5,500 votes. She is ahead in Accomack. In Chesapeake, she's ahead 3-1. Too few precincts have been called in from Virginia Beach to know exactly how that's playing out. But as you can hear from the Cosgroves, they're very optimistic that things could turn around and that there's too few precincts reporting yet to make any concrete assumptions or analysis on this. But that's the latest from Virginia Beach. Tom, back to you. Those were the Cosgroves.
A lot of optimism
Candidates
there.
want people like the Cosgroves on their side.
All right, thank you, Andy Fox, reporting live. Let's get you updated now on the race for U.S. Senate. This race has been called for incumbent Tim Kaine. The Democrat has won a third term over his Republican challenger, Hung Cao, refugee from Vietnam. Now, we are joined by Dr. Rebecca Bromley Trujillo, Research Director for the Watson Center at Civic Leadership at Christopher Newport University. Thank you for joining us.
Absolutely.
We talked during our broadcast on Wavy TV about what's called the Red Mirage. And we have seen that before in many states. We were discussing it in the green room out there, North Carolina and Virginia. Virginia, of course, has been called now for Kamala Harris. But we see these big pockets of red votes that are out in the rural areas, and that tends to get people optimistic that the state is going for our guy, but that's not always the case.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to make clear to your viewers that it depends on the state and it depends on which votes they're first, but certainly rural areas tend to count faster, and so it can look like Republicans are ahead, but then when the bigger cities come in or the suburbs, then it seems to flip to the Democrats. And so I just want to caution anyone from interpreting too much from the little amounts of data we're getting. But that said, I do think we're getting some meaningful data that's telling us some important things about both the races in Virginia and also nationally.
And what are some of those points that you just alluded to?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, in Virginia, certainly we're seeing the projection for Kamala Harris. I absolutely agree with that projection. But She is underperforming a bit relative to how Biden did. And remember, Biden won the state by 10 points. And so in some areas where he did particularly well in Northern Virginia, she's not quite hitting Biden's benchmarks there. And so I do think she might come out a little lower in Virginia, still win it certainly, but maybe not by 10 points. Maybe it's more 7 or 8. And that really has down ballot impacts in the state. And so the race that you all were just talking about, Virginia 2, I definitely think that the numbers are looking good for Kiggans, and she's more likely to pull this out, especially if Harris is underperforming a little bit.
And we talk about underperforming in Virginia. What would that mean for Harris and other states, including North Carolina?
Yeah, absolutely. So states are highly correlated. So when candidates are struggling in some states, that can translate into other states. It's not a perfect correlation, though, and so there's certainly some different conditions in North Carolina. I know we've seen some talk about the governor's race there and the kind of scandal that was affecting that race that might be also impacting the presidential race. And so I think Virginia and Harris underperforming might mean something for her in other states, but North Carolina in particular, it's a little bit of a question mark with that governor's race.
So what do you see going forward tonight?
I think this is going to be a
I'm putting
very
you
long
on the
night.
spot.
No, I think it's going to be a long night. We are seeing some pieces of data that are good for both candidates, and I really think it's going to come down to states like Pennsylvania, and they are saying they're not going to be able to put out their full set of votes until maybe even the weekend. So that's
just like last in 2020.
Yes.
It was Saturday when Pennsylvania came in and then tipped the scales for President Biden.
That's exactly right, and it would not surprise me if we see something just like that in this election.
And breaking down who came out, who voted what way, that's always the interesting thing to determine whenever you look at the different groups that voted, women, the ages, the races, all these different things that tend to, give us our little melting pot, if you will, of how we get an election result.
Yes, it's been fascinating to watch, and I'm really interested to see where we land here, because there's some really important trends among Latino voters, among women, among young versus older voters, and really we just don't know yet. We don't have enough data to say definitively, but I'm seeing some interesting shifts for sure.
And we talk about the issues. We talked about immigration, inflation, the economy, national security, but also it seems like abortion and reproductive rights have kind of reared their heads with a certain demographic, and really, especially in these last few weeks.
Yes, I mean, that's really, we're seeing that especially among older women. And I think this is something I've heard a lot of older white women and older black women as well saying, we fought this fight a long time ago, we're having to refight it. And so that's definitely in there. And you're seeing it in the gender gap, certainly. It's really a question of whether is that the overarching issue, and we don't know yet. I mean, if it's the economy, if it's immigration, that may tend to benefit Trump. If it's abortion and threats to democracy, that would benefit Harris. So in the end, we'll see which issues really determine the outcome here.
And at least I should say the temperature seems to be, at least tonight, we haven't seen any real issues. I had to hesitate for a moment because I haven't checked my notes for a long time.
Yes.
But our political temperature, our discourse has really been on hot over the last 10, 15 years. How do we get that back down again as a people?
It's really tough. I think it starts with understanding actually how much we agree on so much. We have shared values, we really do. But the way we talk about politics these days is very us versus them, and it's not a good way to talk about politics. Like, really, we do have shared goals, shared
Red,
values.
blue, but we're all Americans.
Yes,
I guess
we're all
that is
Americans.
one thing we all have to try to remember. I know it can be difficult, especially when you have passionate feelings and when you really have a lot at stake in this election like a lot of people have. Scan this QR code now with your phone. It'll open a link to the election results page of wavy.com. I'm Tom Shad. We'll be back with another update at 9:30 right here on wavy.com as those votes continue to come in. Don't go away.